ballerslife.com here with longtime ESPN West Coast recruiting analyst Joe Francisco. Joe, appreciate you having us on. We're going to talk a little bit about recruiting and the differences in potential for long-term and also versus what you might see for a college and what you expect to see as a college do as a freshman, and also talk a little bit about differences in evaluation between a high school event such as we're at the Tarkanian Classic and what you might see at a grassroots travel ball setting. So talk a little bit from a scouting perspective, what the difference is, what you might look for with the high school team compared to a travel ball setting.
I think in a travel ball set, it's kind of a collection of like really good players together.
Sure.
And so you just see kind of their skills mesh together and all that stuff, and you look for athleticism and skill and all that, and playing against very good competition. Whereas I think when I watch, and you take them out of that environment and then you put them on their high school team, then I start looking for, okay, leadership, how are they, what are they doing to make their team win? I think winning becomes more of a priority during the high school season than it does during much more than the club, because I think it's their personal agenda in their team and their leadership ability and how they lead and all that.
Yeah, do you take it as you give it more credence to players that come from a winning program, or do you understand that sometimes good players are stuck on a bad team, even in travel ball setting, they could be in a team that's not loaded, and a lot of good players tend to play with other good players on the travel ball setting. How do you take that?
I see what in terms of another thing I look for is production. So what are they producing to help their team win? Like, for example, I remember back in the day, Tracy Murray, when I first started getting into this,
sure,
he really didn't have much around him, and he led their team to a state, I think they lost in the state championship game, but he did all he could, passing, mostly scoring, obviously getting 40 plus points a game, but he did everything he could to raise his level of team. And then like last year, Lonzo Ball, he had Jello with him, but he wasn't really surrounded by a lot. It was a very young team, but Lonzo did so many things to help his team and elevate his team to a high status last year.
Correct. They had a similar situation. They both went to a state final game.
Yeah.
So, taking it back to Tracy Murray, that's 1989. You went to your first Nike camp in 1990.
Yeah.
Saw Jason Kidd, Chris Webber, Glenn Robinson. So what has changed in the high school game from then? And the second part of that, what have you learned as a scout compared to when you're younger days that you realize now with a little more perspective?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing nowadays is everything's watered down. When I went to that Nike camp, I was this young kid, freshman year at Long Beach State, and I was like, couldn't wait to get to Nike camp. And you get there, it was Jason Kidd, Jalen Rhodes, Glenn Robinson, and you saw all these guys, and every matchup was incredible. Like you were just anticipating. Nowadays, you show up at a camp, it's like, it's nitpicking a little bit, the talent level's not there, there's kids at various shoe companies and all that, so it's watered down more. So I think that's a major difference. And in terms of what I look for now, I think back then I was more enamored with athleticism and got, just making big time plays over that word. Now I'm looking more at skill and overall feel for the game, leadership ability, how they interact with their teammates, as well as the athleticism and the skill.
Got you. Now, when you talk about those type of players like Chris Webber, it was evident he was going to make a quick impact that first year in college, and obviously Michigan went to the final game. Glenn Robinson sat out as a prop 48, and Purdue, he was a great player right away. So when you look at that, when you talk about what do you expect when you see the industry, ESPN, 247, and the rest, when you look for evaluating, are you guys evaluating for what they're going to do at the college level that next year, like Chris Webber, or is it more of an evaluation for 5 or 7 years down the line with potentially in the NBA?
Well, I think with ESPN, one of our top priorities is what we look at upside and what they're going to be like. We're looking at NBA future,
gotcha.
Especially in this class, where people were mentioning, up to 15 guys that look like probable NBA players. So I think we look in that regards, and then as you kind of go down the pecking order, like, okay, what kind of impact they can make at college as opposed to, and then they may have a chance to get to the NBA, but for the most part, we're looking more, our number one priority is upside and how they project going forward, not only to college, but 5-7 years and beyond.
Got you. So what advice would you give a college player who is coming in and on one spectrum, he's a high-level recruit, whether it's a Josh Jackson, Lonzo Ball, that type of player, compared to a guy who might be there for 3 or 4 years? What advice would you offer in your years of experience that may help a kid out there who's experiencing the same thing?
Well, I think for me is when I talk to kids, I said, hey, it's not where you start, it's where you finish.
Gotcha.
And there's going to be, and we've seen a couple of freshmen, one of our guys, Jeff Barzell, put out a list of guys that were highly rated, and they went into situations where it's just been a bit of a struggle. Chase Jeter. It's been a little bit, not getting hard to get on the floor and stuff, but just to stick it out, learn for the system, and be like a Plumlee, a 4-year guy, and now all Plumlees are going to be, Marshall's going to be in the pros too. So be patient, Everybody wants to expedite the process, and now, hey, slow down, instant gratification. That's why we have so many transfers now. If it doesn't work out, I'm bolting, I'm getting out of here. But stick it out, and let the process go about.
Appreciate the input, Joel. Thank you for coming on with us, and thanks for your unique perspective.
You bet. Thanks.